The morning light slipped through the curtains of the Hayes apartment, painting the room in a soft golden glow. The sound of cars echoed faintly from below, and the air carried the smell of coffee from the cafe downstairs. Liam Hayes adjusted his tie in front of the mirror, his reflection calm, determined, and quietly proud. He wasn't rich yet, but he had peace, and he had Elena. She was still in bed, half asleep, her hair spread across the pillow. Liam smiled softly and leaned down to kiss her forehead. "See you tonight, love. Don't forget our dinner plan," he whispered before leaving. Outside, San Francisco was waking up. Liam walked to work with a sketchbook under his arm, his mind full of ideas. A new architectural project could finally change their life. Every long hour, every design, every sleepless night, he was doing it for her, for them. Elena woke up later, reaching for the empty side of the bed. She stared at the ceiling for a while, then sighed and picked up her phone. The screen lit up with flawless smiles, luxury vacations, and champagne sunsets. She scrolled until a familiar name appeared. Ryan Cole. Her heart skipped. He was her past, the one she thought she'd erased. But seeing his message, "Hey stranger, still in San Francisco?" made something inside her stir. She hesitated, then replied, "Yeah, been a while." That evening, Liam came home early with groceries, smiling like a man who believed love still solved everything. He wanted a simple dinner, just laughter and quiet time together. They cooked, they danced to an old Ed Sheeran song, and for a while it felt like the world was still theirs. But he noticed the distance, the way she looked at her phone, the way her laughter felt practiced. He didn't ask. He just held her tighter when they went to bed. Weeks passed. Liam buried himself in work. Every blueprint was another promise he made to her. But late nights turned into empty mornings, and Elena's meetings with friends became routine. She dressed differently now, wore a new perfume, and always had a reason not to answer his calls right away. One night, he came home late and saw a black car parked near the building. A man was dropping Elena off. Even from a distance, he knew that face. Ryan Cole. The same man she said meant nothing. He stood in the cold, watching as Ryan leaned close, whispered something that made her smile, the same smile that used to belong to him. She went inside. Ryan drove off. He stayed there for a long time, frozen. Maybe it was nothing, he told himself. Maybe he was imagining things. But deep inside, something broke. That night, she slipped into bed beside him and thought he was asleep. Her phone buzzed and she smiled faintly at the screen before turning it over. Liam didn't move, didn't breathe too loudly. He just stared at the ceiling in silence, feeling something inside him quietly die. And in that silence, he realized this wasn't a bad dream. It was the beginning of the end. The next morning, the world looked exactly the same, but something inside Liam had shifted. He moved through his routine like a ghost. The sound of Elena humming in the kitchen felt foreign now, like a stranger had borrowed her voice. She smiled when he walked in, her hair perfectly done, her tone overly sweet. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep," Liam replied, pouring coffee that tasted more like regret than caffeine. He watched her scroll through her phone again. That faint curve of her lips appeared, the one she tried to hide. He didn't ask who she was texting. He didn't want to hear her lie. He left for work early. His office, filled with sketches and models, used to bring him peace. Now it was just walls and paper. He stared at a blank sheet for hours, his pencil still. Every thought wandered back to that black car, to that smile, to Ryan. By evening, he went home expecting the usual quiet. But when he entered, the apartment smelled like expensive wine and her perfume. 2 glasses on the table, one half empty. A man's jacket on the chair. Liam froze. He heard her voice from the balcony. "You should go. He'll be home soon." Ryan stepped in through the sliding door, his eyes meeting Liam's. That confident smirk flickered for half a second. "Hey, man," he said casually, like nothing was wrong. Elena looked shocked, but only for a moment. Then she smiled, small and nervous. "Liam, this isn't what it looks like." He didn't yell. He didn't ask questions. He just looked at Ryan and said softly, "Get out." Ryan hesitated, then grabbed his jacket. "You should have treated her better," he muttered as he left. The door shut and silence fell. Elena stood there, her hands trembling, her lips searching for excuses. "He just came to talk. You're always so busy, Liam. You don't even notice me anymore. I was lonely. He turned away, staring out the window at the city lights. "Don't," he whispered. "Just don't." She cried that night, or at least she pretended to, but Liam knew the difference between guilt and sorrow. Guilt cries to be forgiven. Sorrow cries because it understands. Days passed in a blur. They lived like strangers, sharing the same roof. No laughter, no warmth, just silence stretching across every meal. She tried to make him talk, tried to touch him, but he moved away gently each time, not out of anger, but out of loss. One evening, he packed a small bag. He said, "I'm going to stay at the office for a while. You can have the space you need." She didn't stop him. Maybe she thought he'd come back begging. Maybe she thought he still loved her enough to break. But as he walked out of the door, Liam felt something unexpected. Relief. The weight of betrayal was heavy, but the first step away from it felt light. At the office, he stayed late, working through the nights. Maya, his old university friend, stopped by one evening to drop off dinner. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes. "You look like you haven't slept in days," she said. He smiled weakly. "I guess I haven't." They sat together, eating quietly. After a long pause, Maya asked softly, "It's about her, isn't it?" Liam didn't answer at first. He just stared at the skyline outside the glass windows. "It's strange," he said, "how someone can promise you forever and then decide they've had enough." She nodded, eyes gentle. Some people confuse love with attention. When the attention fades, so does their loyalty. He looked at her and for the first time in weeks felt seen. Later that night, alone in his office, Liam opened his laptop and stared at the unfinished project, the dream home he was designing for him and Elena. He selected all the files and pressed delete. The screen went blank. It felt symbolic. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and whispered to himself, "I'm done loving someone who doesn't know what love means." Outside, the rain began to fall, soft, steady, cleansing. Elena, miles away, sat in her empty apartment scrolling through old photos of them, her face unreadable. Ryan had stopped answering her calls. The laughter she once faked was gone. The silence she once caused now surrounded her completely. Liam didn't hate her. He didn't want revenge. He just wanted peace. But peace has a strange way of returning. Sometimes it waits for you to rebuild yourself first. And that's exactly what Liam was about to do. Weeks turned into months. The city kept moving, but Liam's world had slowed down. He lived between work and silence, between sleepless nights and sketches that never seemed good enough. His apartment near the bay was small, quiet, and perfectly lonely. Maya started visiting more often. She never asked too much, never pitied him. She just existed beside him, the way light exists beside shadows. Sometimes they'd share takeout, sometimes just silence. It was strange how comfortable silence could be when it wasn't filled with lies. One evening, she found him staring at the same drawing for an hour. "You used to draw dreams," she said softly. "Now you only draw walls." He smiled faintly. Dreams fall. Walls stand. She didn't argue. She just reached over and placed the small potted plant on his desk. "Then start with this, something that grows." He didn't realize it then, but that small act meant more than anything else. It was the first living thing in his life that didn't remind him of pain. Meanwhile, Elena's world was quietly collapsing. The apartment she once filled with laughter now felt like a museum of broken promises. Ryan had moved on, finding a new distraction, leaving her to sit in the emptiness she'd created. She tried to call Liam several times, but the calls went unanswered. One day, she went to his office and found Maya there. The sight hit her harder than she expected. Maya, beautiful, calm, radiant in a way Elena never was without makeup. She saw the way Liam looked at her, and something inside her twisted. "Hi," Elena said awkwardly, pretending confidence. "Just came to talk to my husband." Liam didn't look up from his work. "We signed the papers, Elena."
Her voice faltered. "I just wanted to see how you're doing." He finally met his eyes. Better. That one word cut deeper than any insult could. She looked at Maya, then back at him, and smiled the kind of smile people use to hide their shame. "You replaced me quickly." Maya stepped back, but Liam's tone stayed calm. "You replaced me first. I'm just catching up." Elena's facade broke for a second. "It wasn't supposed to end like this, Liam. I made mistakes, but you were never around. You left me alone." "I left you?" His voice was still soft, but his eyes burned with quiet hurt. "Elena, you left me long before I packed my bags. You just didn't walk out the door yet." She stood there, blinking back tears she didn't want to shed in front of him. "I loved you," she whispered. He didn't answer. Some truths didn't need to be corrected anymore. When she left, the room fell silent again. Maya watched him from across the desk. "Are you okay?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "For the first time in a long time? Yeah." That night, Liam worked late again, but something was different. His sketches were full of light. He started a new project, a community center meant to help people rebuild their lives after personal loss. It wasn't just architecture anymore. It was healing through design. The more he worked, the more alive he felt. Maya became a part of that rhythm, his quiet inspiration, his unspoken support. They didn't